So we do not have data on security agencies who incorporate allowances into basic wages following the implementation of the PWM. However, we observe that gross wages for security officers, which include allowances, have increased since the implementation of the PWM for security officers in 2016. From 2016, when we started the PWM, to 2023, the median gross wage of Singapore citizens and permanent residents working as full-time security officers increased 19.2% cumulatively. Employers have the prerogative to decide how to structure workers' overall compensation, provided they comply with PWM requirements. While it is possible for employers to incorporate allowances into the basic wage to offset PWM mandated wage increases, such practices are unsustainable. PWM requirements increase year on year, and there is a limit to how much wage components can be shifted. So let me explain. In 2016, the PWM wage requirements for a security officer employed by a security agency was $1,300. From 1st January 2025 this year, this has increased to $2,870. And by 2028, this would increase to $3,530. So this translates to PWM raising the salaries of security officers to around 220% more than the wage requirement in 2016. So this means that security officers will likely see their total take-home pay, which includes both basic wages and variable components such as allowances, increase over the coming years. So security officers who wish to report contractual breaches or employees not adhering to PWM requirements can approach their union or contact MOM for assistance. Thank you.
So given that security officers earning above $2,600 now a month are no longer covered under Part 4 of the Employment Act, has the ministry assessed whether security agencies are increasing reliance on overtime instead of hiring additional officers following the PWM implementation? And what measures will be taken if excessive overtime becomes the norm? And related to that, how is MOM ensuring that security officers are not subjected to arbitrarily low overtime pay now that they rely on employer-determined overtime rates? And lastly, will the ministry consider increasing the salary threshold for Part 4 protections so that security officers can retain essential protections under the Act, even as wages rise?
SMS Zaqy.
Well, I thank the member for his question. In fact, I think it's a good thing actually that our security officers now earn above Employment Act Part 4, because ultimately this means that their wages now are growing beyond the B20 or the bottom 20% mark. So technically, if you want to go by strict definitions, they are exceeding past what we used to think as low-wage workers. So I think that's good progress from the unions and the tripartite partners in terms of how we've managed to increase the wage of low-wage security officers that, by 2028, they will even get up to $3,500, which is much higher than what many of our low-wage workers earn today. So I think to that extent, to a large extent, that shows progress. But however, I take members' point, and in short, Minister for Manpower announced during COS that we are reviewing the Employment Act as well. And that will include, things like this, whether the thresholds have to be increased to keep up with current pace, for example. So these are areas we look at. But I just want to assure member that security officers are not worse off in terms of maximum number of overtime hours or paid leave entitlements, because ultimately security officers continue to be licensed by the Singapore Police Force Police Licensing and Regulatory Department. So I think this is a license area. And today, the relevant provisions of the Employment Act still apply to them. For example, the licensing conditions provide that the total number of extra hours above the 44-hour work week is kept at a maximum of 72 hours per month. So I think this ensures that there is no gaming, hopefully. But if there's any gaming, please surface to us, and we'll take the police. We'll take them to task with the police. So these are aspects in which there's still protections available because this is a licensed sector. Nonetheless, having said that, I think one of the key reasons why we also move towards a gross wage structure for PWM is to make sure that they don't game the system such that everything is all-encompassing. And as long as you meet the PWM requirements for gross wage, I think that's sufficient, to ensure that there is a minimum amount that security officers benefit from PWM.